At 10:42 a.m. on May 9, 1941, the British destroyer HMS Bulldog cut through the Grey Atlantic roughly 400 miles southwest of Iceland. Commander Joseph Baker Cresswell, captain of the destroyer, had been pursuing a damaged German submarine for nearly 9 hours. The submarine was German submarine U-110, a Type White B U-boat commanded by Captain Lieutenant Fritz Julius Lemp. Earlier that morning at 6:10 a.m., aircraft from the escort carrier HMS Ark Royal had forced the submarine to dive repeatedly. The attacks damaged the U-boat battery system and compromised internal pressure seals. By mid-morning, the submarine could no longer remain submerged. At 10:40 a.m., the black hull broke the Atlantic surface. 2 minutes later, sailors from HMS Bulldog watched something unexpected. German crewmen began abandoning the submarine. Commander Cresswell immediately ordered a boarding party. Lieutenant David Balme, aged 24, assembled 9 sailors and lowered a whaler boat into the water. The small British team climbed onto the empty submarine at 10:58 a.m. Inside, they discovered something extraordinary. The Germans had fled in such haste that they left behind the Enigma cipher machine, codebooks, signal tables, and rotor settings used by the Kriegsmarine submarine command network. The device itself was small, roughly the size of a portable typewriter, yet its strategic value was immense. The German naval version of the Enigma encryption system used 3 rotating cipher wheels, each containing 26 electrical contacts representing letters of the alphabet. With 3 rotors installed in different sequences, plus a plugboard system with up to 10 cable pairs, the theoretical number of possible encryption combinations exceeded 150 trillion. German Naval Command believed the system was mathematically unbreakable. They transmitted daily operational messages across high-frequency radio networks. Each signal carried instructions for submarine patrol zones, refueling locations, and convoy attack positions. The British already knew about Enigma, but until that moment they lacked the current naval key material required to read the messages in real time. The captured documents from U-110 included daily key settings for May and June 1941 grid, coordinate tables used for Atlantic patrol zones, call sign lists for multiple U-boat wolf packs, authentication code sheets used by German command headquarters. Within hours, the materials were secretly transferred to Britain. They were delivered to a large Victorian estate 60 miles north of London. The location was Bletchley Park. Behind the quiet brick buildings of that estate worked more than 7,000 personnel, mathematicians, linguists, engineers, chess champions, crossword experts. Among them was the mathematician Alan Turing. Inside a wooden structure known as Hut 8, Turing and his team focused on a single mission: break the German naval Enigma system. Earlier attempts had produced partial success, but the Kriegsmarine had introduced new security procedures in February 1941, including more complex rotor arrangements and stricter radio discipline. For 3 months, Allied naval intelligence had been effectively blind to submarine movements in the Atlantic. During that same period, German wolfpacks sank more than 200 Allied merchant ships. The Atlantic supply route was the only lifeline between the United States and Britain. Each convoy carried food shipments, aviation, fuel truck engines, tank parts, artillery ammunition. Without those shipments, Britain could not continue large-scale war operations. Every German submarine patrol line represented a deadly barrier across that supply corridor. The captured Enigma material from U-110 changed everything. At 2 p.m. on May 10, 1941, the codebooks arrived at Bletchley Park under heavy guard. Within hours, engineers fed the new key settings into electromechanical machines known as bombs. These machines were large rotating devices that tested thousands of rotor combinations per minute. Rows of spinning drums clicked and whirred as the machines searched for matching cipher patterns. Late that evening, just after 11 p.m., one of the machines stopped. The signal operators in Hut 8 gathered around the printout. A decrypted German message appeared. It was a transmission from U-boat command headquarters in Lorient, France. The message described the formation of a new Wolfpack patrol line across the North Atlantic convoy route. The German code name was Wolfpack Westphalen. The signal included exact patrol coordinates and submarine positions. For the first time, British Naval Command could see where the submarines were waiting. The information moved immediately to the Admiralty Operational Intelligence Center in London. Within hours, convoy planners began quietly adjusting shipping routes. Cargo ships changed course hundreds of miles south of the predicted submarine positions. From the German perspective, convoys simply vanished. U-boat commanders waited in empty ocean sectors. Fuel burned. Torpedoes remained unused. The Atlantic battle had entered a new and invisible phase. But the Germans would not remain blind forever, because every intercepted message carried a risk. If the Kriegsmarine realized their codes were compromised, they would change the encryption system immediately. And if that happened, the advantage gained from the captured Enigma machine would disappear overnight. Meanwhile, in the cold Atlantic waters, new German submarines were already leaving their bases in France. Among them was a commander known for ruthless efficiency. His submarine carried 14 torpedoes, a 10.5-centimeter deck gun, and orders to hunt a convoy expected within days. The Allies now had a fragile window of knowledge, but could the codebreakers read the signals fast enough to save the ships already crossing the ocean? At 6:15 a.m. on May 18, 1941, inside Hut 8 at Bletchley Park, a group of codebreakers gathered around a newly printed intercept. The message had been transmitted at 3:52 a.m. from the German Naval Command Center in Lorient, France, headquarters of the Atlantic submarine fleet under Admiral Karl Dönitz. The sender identified 3 submarines moving into a coordinated patrol line. One of them was U-boat U-94, commanded by Captain Lieutenant Otto Ites. Another was U-boat U-96, commanded by Captain Lieutenant Heinrich Lehmann-Willenbrock. The third vessel was U-boat U-502, commanded by Captain Lieutenant Erich Topp, one of the most effective submarine commanders in the German fleet. The signal contained a grid reference from the German naval coordinate system known as Gradnetz-Meldeverfahren. To anyone outside the code-breaking rooms, the message looked meaningless. To the cryptanalysts, it revealed something dangerous. A Wolfpack patrol line, nearly 300 miles long, was forming directly across the expected path of convoy HX-126. That convoy had departed Halifax, Nova Scotia on May 14, 1941, carrying 30 merchant ships loaded with aviation gasoline, steel plate, and truck engines destined for Britain. The escort group protecting the convoy included the destroyers HMS Gladiolus, HMS Volunteer, and the corvette HMS Campanula, each equipped with Type 1, 2, 3 ASDIC sonar systems and depth charges set to explode at 100 feet, 200 feet, or 300 feet. But escorts alone were not enough. A single German submarine could fire 4 torpedoes in less than 20 seconds. If a wolfpack of 8 or 10 submarines surrounded a convoy at night, escorts could be overwhelmed. The codebreakers understood the stakes immediately. At 7:05 a.m., the decrypted coordinates were sent to the Operational Intelligence Center of the British Admiralty in London. There, officers used large Atlantic wall maps covered in movable ship markers. The submarine positions were plotted carefully. The result was alarming. If convoy HX-126 maintained its current course, it would sail directly into the center of the Wolfpack by midnight on May 20th. The decision was made quickly. At 7:40 a.m., a new routing signal was transmitted to the convoy escort commander. The message ordered a course change of 130 degrees southeast, pushing the convoy nearly 200 miles off its original path. This maneuver was delicate. The Germans monitored Allied radio traffic constantly. If the convoy turned too sharply or too early, the sudden change could reveal that Allied command possessed inside knowledge of submarine positions. The order had to appear routine, so the signal included a harmless explanation: weather avoidance. The convoy altered course slowly through the afternoon. Meanwhile, in Hut 8, the machines continued running. Rows of bombing machines, each containing dozens of rotating electrical drums, clattered continuously. Each machine tested rotor combinations against intercepted German message fragments known as cribs. A crib might be a predictable phrase, such as a weather report heading or a naval greeting used in many transmissions. Once a possible rotor alignment appeared, operators tested it manually on a replica Enigma machine. At 2:30 p.m. on May 19th, another decrypted signal arrived. This one came from U-boat command headquarters directly to the Wolfpack. It ordered the submarines to tighten their patrol spacing. Each boat was instructed to maintain 15 nautical mile separation, forming a barrier designed to detect convoy smoke on the horizon. This formation covered a massive area of ocean, but the convoy was no longer heading there. By 9:15 p.m. on May 19th, convoy HX-126 had slipped completely south of the submarine line. German commanders waited through the night, expecting targets that never appeared. On board U-boat U-96, Captain Lieutenant Lehmann-Willenbrock ordered a surface patrol using the submarine twin diesel engines. His vessel cruised at 17 knots, scanning the horizon through a 7-power Zeiss-Uzo binocular system. Nothing appeared, no ships, no smoke, no silhouettes against the moonlit horizon. By dawn, the submarine batteries were nearly depleted from overnight maneuvering. Fuel reserves were also dropping. Every wasted patrol consumed precious range. Across the Wolfpack formation, similar reports reached German command. Empty ocean sectors, no convoy contact. Admiral Dönitz initially suspected bad luck, but these unexplained convoy disappearances began to repeat. Throughout June 1941, Allied convoys increasingly slipped around submarine patrol lines with uncanny precision. Submarine captains reported hours of silent waiting in assigned sectors while merchant ships passed far beyond their reach. Behind the scenes, the codebreakers at Bletchley Park were reading a growing portion of the German naval signal traffic. Every decrypted message allowed Allied planners to redraw the invisible battlefield of the Atlantic. Convoys were no longer sailing blindly. They were navigating through corridors between submarine patrol lines, yet the system had one critical weakness. Each day at midnight, German Naval Command introduced new Enigma key settings. If the codebreakers failed to recover the new rotor positions quickly enough, the Allies would lose visibility again, and the Germans were constantly improving their security procedures. By late 1941, intelligence officers began detecting references to a new cipher upgrade within German naval communications, a modified Enigma system. More rotors, more complexity, more combinations. If the Kriegsmarine deployed that system across the U-boat fleet, the work of Hut 8 could collapse overnight. And somewhere in the submarine bases along the French Atlantic coast, engineers were already preparing the machines that would trigger that blackout. At 12:00 a.m. on February 1st, 1942, German naval communication networks switched to a new encryption system. Inside the U-boat bases at Lorient, Saint-Nazaire, and La Rochelle, signal officers replaced the familiar Enigma configuration with a modified machine. The new system used 4 rotors instead of 3. The machine was known as the M4 Enigma, sometimes called Shark by Allied intelligence. This upgrade multiplied the number of encryption combinations dramatically. Instead of trillions of possible settings, the new system produced numbers so large that even the electromechanical bomb machines at Bletchley Park could not search them quickly. Inside Hut 8, the effect was immediate. At 8:10 a.m. that morning, operators attempted to decrypt the first intercepted Shark transmission. The bomb machines spun for hours. No solution appeared. By the afternoon, the codebreakers understood what had happened. The Atlantic had gone dark. For nearly 10 months, the intelligence advantage that had allowed Allied convoys to slip around submarine patrol lines disappeared. German submarines suddenly regained the initiative. During the first half of 1942, submarine commanders expanded their operations westward into American coastal waters. The campaign became known as Operation Paukenschlag, or Drumbeat. Beginning on January 13, 1942, the first wave of long-range submarines reached the shipping lanes along the eastern coast of the United States. Cities such as Norfolk, Charleston, and New York continued operating with bright harbor lights visible from the sea. Merchant vessels sailed predictable coastal routes. American convoy systems had not yet been fully organized. For submarine commanders, the targets appeared almost effortless. Among the attacking boats was German submarine U-123, commanded by Reinhard Hartigan. On the night of January 14, 1942, Hartigan approached the American tanker Nornis, roughly 40 miles southeast of Long Island. At 1:17 a.m., U-123 fired a 533mm G7E electric torpedo. The torpedo struck the tanker midship. The burning vessel illuminated the coastline, while nearby city lights remained visible on the horizon. Over the following weeks, multiple submarines operated freely along the coast. During January and February 1942, German submarines sank more than 100 ships in the western Atlantic. Without decrypted Enigma signals, Allied Naval Command could not anticipate submarine patrol zones. Convoys were again forced to navigate blind, but the cryptanalysts at Bletchley Park continued searching for weaknesses in the Shark system. The breakthrough required both mathematics and captured material. On October 30th, 1942, a dramatic opportunity appeared in the Mediterranean Sea. British destroyers intercepted the damaged German submarine U-55I9 northeast of Port Said, Egypt. Depth charge attacks forced the submarine to surface shortly before 11 p.m. As the crew abandoned the vessel, 3 British sailors swam aboard. 2 of them were able seaman Colin Grazier and canteen assistant Tommy Brown. Working in near darkness inside the sinking submarine, they located German signal books. Among them were weather-short signal codes and updated cipher tables used with the M4 system. Minutes later, the submarine flooded and sank. Grazier and another sailor were lost in the attempt, but the recovered documents were delivered to Britain. When the materials reached Bletchley Park, the codebreakers immediately began integrating the new tables into their calculations. At the same time, engineers expanded the mechanical power of the bomb network. More machines were installed. Rotor search patterns were redesigned. Mathematical shortcuts identified by Alan Turing and colleagues reduced the number of required combinations. Finally, on December 13, 1942, shortly after 2:30 p.m., one of the bombs halted with a viable Shark rotor alignment. A decrypted message appeared. The signal described submarine refueling positions in the mid-Atlantic. More importantly, it revealed the assembly of a new patrol line intended to intercept convoy on 154, traveling from Britain toward North America. Within hours, the information reached the Admiralty Operational Intelligence Center in London. Convoy routing officers began altering shipping lanes again. The invisible chess match across the Atlantic resumed. Over the next year, the impact grew larger. Decrypted U-boat messages allowed Allied forces to redirect convoys away from patrol lines, concentrate escort groups, and guide long-range patrol aircraft towards submarine sightings. By May 1943, the balance in the Atlantic shifted decisively. Escort carriers, such as USS Bogue, began operating with hunter-killer groups equipped with radar, high-frequency direction-finding equipment, and aircraft carrying Mark 24 acoustic homing torpedoes. These groups used intelligence derived from decrypted signals to locate submarine concentrations. During May 1943 alone, Allied forces destroyed 41 German submarines. Losses at that scale forced Admiral Karl Donitz to temporarily withdraw much of the submarine fleet from the North Atlantic convoy routes. The supply corridor between North America and Britain stabilized. Fuel, tanks, aircraft engines, and ammunition flowed across the ocean in growing volume. Those shipments sustained the Allied buildup that would later support operations in North Africa, Italy, and eventually the invasion of Western Europe. Yet the majority of the sailors guiding convoys through the Atlantic never knew why some voyages passed safely through empty seas. They never saw the quiet buildings at Bletchley Park. They never heard the constant mechanical rhythm of the bomb machines turning through thousands of cipher combinations. But every redirected convoy and every avoided submarine patrol line was the result of that hidden effort. A silent war fought with mathematics, paper codebooks, and rotating metal wheels. An intelligence battle that reshaped the map of the Atlantic without a single shot being fired.